Welcome back, and thanks for tuning in. Today, we're not going to be doing a market watch, but we probably will tomorrow. Today, what we're going to be doing is looking at a few challenges that you might have to deal with if you're playing competitively or at locals or what have you, and some ways that you can deal with them, whether it's hand traps or other tech choices. But yeah, let's go ahead and dig in, and we'll talk about how to stop these threats. All right, so I think the way to go about this is kind of talk about each card. With that being said, there is cards that kind of go together. So like, for example, if you don't have the opportunity to stop one card, but there's a related card that card's bringing out, say like Branded Fusion into Albion, then how do you deal with Albion to like stop their combo? So I'll kind of try to talk about things or like along the same lines. So I guess first what we'll do is, since we already started talking about that, we will do Branded Fusion and Albion because they're essentially the same combo. Branded Fusion's a lot of time is going to be going into your Albion. And so as far as Branded Fusion goes, where for the purposes of for counteracting Branded Fusion, we're going to pretend that your opponent's going first, activated Branded Fusion, and you're going second. So like, what cards can you play to stop it? So first we'll go over Branded Fusion, and then we'll go over Albion. So for Branded Fusion, the main card that comes to mind is going to be your Ash Blossom. It just negates the effect of any card that includes one of these three effects, which is 1, add a card from your deck to the hand, which is the most common. 2, special summon from the deck, or 3, sends a card from the deck to the graveyard. We find Branded Fusion with the third effect, which is sending a card from the deck to the graveyard. Now, they don't necessarily have to be sending a card from the deck to the graveyard, like, because I think Branded Fusion, you can also use it to materials from your hand or field as materials, but because it includes that line of text that says you can send it from your deck, then Ash Blossom can negate it. So that's pretty nice. But other than that, I can't really think of any other cards that are going to stop Branded Fusion directly. But I guess moving on to the Albion, which is going to be the next issue, because like I said, a lot of times you're going from Branded Fusion into Albion, and then Albion into, say, Dragoon or Masquerade. So it is like, if you don't have Ash Blossom in your opening hand, well, then you've got a problem. You need to stop the Albion from going off, or else they're just going to start building quite a crazy board. So to deal with Albion, it's an activated monster effect that lets you banish fusion materials from your graveyard to special summon a fusion monster from your extra deck. So there are a few cards that come to mind. One, and probably the most powerful, is going to be your Frame Gear Gamma, because you can negate that and then also destroy Albion. So then they pretty much start off with nothing on their field at that point, and they've already used their Branded Fusion. So that's really, really good. And then another option would be Ghostbell. Like Ash Blossom, you can, when a card or effect is activated that includes any of these effects, you can discard this card, negate that activation. This one actually negates the activation, whereas Ash Blossom negates the effect. So basically the relevant effectiveness is banishing a card or cards from the graveyard, which Albion is going to be doing to fusion summon. So you can negate that activation, which is really, really strong just by discarding. They will still have their Albion on the field under Ghostbell, but you'll stop the most devastating effect. I guess one of the issues with these cards is you still have the fusion materials in the graveyard at that point. So if they have branded in red or something, like they're gonna have a follow-up play. But even if they do have branded in red, like at least you're getting rid of 2 bodies on the field. And then the other thing is if they were allowed to go through with this play and they got like Dragoon, well then your hand traps are useless because he can just negate any hand trap after that point if you have one. Of course, if you have multiple, then that's another thing. But and then lastly, we have infinite impermanence, just because you can, if you don't have any monsters on your field, you can just negate it. You can use this from hand and negate Albion's effect. Personally, I think Gamma is the strongest for sure, but Ghostbell is pretty nice too because you can always activate it from your hand no matter what turn you're on. So that is pretty nice as well. And infinite impermanence does the job as well, but it's not as strong. And if they have a way to continue on, it's going to be nice for them to still have that big body on the board. But yeah, I think Gamma is probably the best here, in my opinion. The other thing you can do, which is kind of weave around Albion and not directly negate it, is you can use like a DD Crow to banish their Hex Seal from their graveyard after the resolution of Branded Fusion. But for one thing, I don't know. I used to have like 4 DD Crows and somehow they've all disappeared. And the ultimate rare I did end up selling. So I was going to use that in this video as another option because that also helps with some of the other issues that we'll go over. But yeah, I don't know where it went or where they went. So I guess can't really show you that, but at least I can talk about it. So what you would do is use your DD Crow, get rid of the Hex-like fusion, and that kind of prevents them from going into Dragoon. But they probably can still go into something else, like their Marriage Aid or something. So that's not ideal either. You'd probably want to stop the Albion directly. With that aside, that's kind of, I'm sure there are more cards that you can play to stop this combo, but to me, those are kind of the main cards that come to mind as far as stopping them if you don't have any cards in the field. Of course, if you go first and they go second and they're doing this, well, then there's like infinite ways to deal with it. But yeah, that's pretty important. I guess while I have this out, to flip it around, if you're playing Branded Fusion, they're going to try to ash you if they have it. So like what I've said, if you have a Gamma, obviously you're not, if you use Branded Fusion first, which I recommend doing, you're not going to have any monsters on field, so you can use your Cyphering, your Gamma, and negate their Ash Blossom, so you can go through with your play. So I guess that's important to note as well. Moving on, another card that's going to be an issue for this, and you can include Verte with this as well. It depends on like what way they try to go into this card. So if you're going via Fusion Destiny, really the only thing you can do is Ash. Like I said, if you're going second and you don't have any other disruptions on your field, you can Ash the Fusion Destiny. But if they're going through Verte, there's quite a few options. One, you have Imperm. You can use this from your hand to negate the Verte before they start getting that play going, and then you just don't have to worry about it. And then alternatively, which is also really good, you could still Gamma the Verte, and then you also just get rid of a Link 2 on their field. Because the other thing is if they have Verte and Anaconda and you just Imperm it, the problem is they could just link that off into something else unless they've already activated the effect, and then you're using Imperm. Kind of just depends on timing. But yeah, those are 2 ways you can stop this card from coming out. With that being said, if you don't have these in your hand and this card does come out, you pretty much aren't going to want to deal with it until your turn. But at the same time, on your turn, you have limited options. One of them is, on the start of your turn, you just imperm or droplets it. But the issue with that is you're not solving the issue because if it's destroyed by battle, if you try to get rid of it, it's still going to be engraved and it's going to be able to bring itself back. And you know how that goes. So that's not really that good. But what you can do is do a combination of cards like negate its effects, then destroy it by battle, and then have something like a Ghostbell to negate it from bringing itself back. And you're going to Ghostbell it when it declares its effect, I believe, on the turn that it gets destroyed, not on the following turn. And make sure that like when you're playing that people do declare its effect when it gets destroyed, because I have noticed that some people don't say anything when this hits grave, and then on their following turn, they just special summon it back, and you're like, what are you doing? You never declared the effect, which you have to declare when it's destroyed. So make sure I don't want to tell you to be a card shark, but at the same time, you don't want to get cheated out of that. People should know their rulings. That's not even a ruling, that's just reading the card. Other than that, the other thing you could do, well, not really. I would say you could gamma when it tries to activate its effect, but the only way you could do that is, for example, you normal summon, let's say Alistair, and they activate the effect. They wouldn't do that because that's dumb, but they might. Who knows? Let's just, it's a normal summon, so they activate the effect, destroying your normal summon and their own Destiny hero, Phoenix Enforcer. When it hits the grave and activates its effect, if you only normal summoned, you would not have any other monsters on the board, so you could just use your gamma then. And then it's dead, like they can't bring it back at that point. The other thing you could do is just DD Crow it in the grave. That's why I kind of wanted to have the DD Crow to show you, but unfortunately I don't. The other thing you could do is when it hits the grave, you can use your Called by the Grave. Unfortunately, you can only play one copy of this, so this is not, you want to play more than just one card to deal with that issue. But like I said, these are decent options, but Ghostbell is actually really better if you're to the point where this is already on board and you weren't able to stop the summon, whereas Gamma is more highly situational, like you just have to have no monsters on board. I'm trying to think what else. I guess one important thing to note too is if you are playing branded, I didn't talk about this when we had the branded fusion up, but we'll go ahead and put this up. If you are playing branded and you do go first, if you have a Crossout Designator in hand and you don't need to use it, like say your opponent didn't open any hand traps, you can set that. And then when your opponent goes into branded fusion, you can just activate the effect, sending a branded fusion from your, banishing it, and then negating their branded fusion, which is also pretty cool. I think a lot of people will be playing branded, so I think Crossout Designator is going to end up being a decent card this format. But that's also something to note. But I guess since I already have Crossout out anyways, we'll go ahead and note that, like, if let's say you're the person that's playing branded or DPE or any of these other cards, one card that you can play in your deck to stop these devastating like hand traps is Crossout Designator. So if they try to Ghostbell your DPE or anything else like that, you can use your Crossout. As long as you're playing targets for these, like you need to play Ghostbell and Ash Blossom, of course, and like Nibiru and all those other cards. DD Crow, you probably wouldn't need to. I just don't think you're going to see DD Crow come up too often, but at least hopefully not. So next is going to be Water Enchantress. And this could also be Right included, although you're going to treat them a little differently. For Right, there's nothing you can really do, to be honest. So that's why I wanted to focus more on Water Enchantress. So basically when they activate the effect from hand to banish, really the best card to deal with this is going to be Ash Blossom. I'm trying to think what else. Gamma as well can also deal with the problem. And that's the two cards that come to mind, because you got to keep in mind this is not activating on field, it's from hand, so you can't impermanent or anything. So these are probably the two better cards to deal with it. Unfortunately, Ash Blossom is pretty expensive. But yeah, you're going to be seeing this a lot, as well as the branded stuff. So you need to be prepared to see this. And once they get the Wandering Griffin Rider on the field, then your hand traps are dead in your hand pretty much. So you really need to make sure that you hit this card if this card comes up. If they use right, you pretty much need Ghostbell for the Fateful Adventure. Alrighty. Okay. With that aside, next is going to be branded in red, and this kind of goes along too with the branded fusion. But this is also going to be a potential follow-up play. And it also is going to, a lot of times if they have this in hand or they search this, they'll save it for your turn, because they can use this to go into Guardian Chimera. So basically you need to stop this, because if they go into Guardian Chimera, that's going to be devastating and you'll probably lose the game. So one really good way to stop this is going to be Ghostbell. Because for this effect to go off, they need to add a Fallen of Albaz or Despia monster from their graveyard to their hand. And this prevents you from doing that. Ghostbell does. So this is just an easy way to get rid of this, or not let this go off. Other than that, that's really all you can really do to stop it from happening. You know, if you're going second, they're going first. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I mean, it's a quick play, so even if you're going second and they activate this on your turn, or they try to, or like you try to, if you see this face down and you try to Cosmic Cyclone, they can chain. So there's really, the only thing that I can really think that you can do is just Ghostbell it. And then lastly, I mean, there's going to be a lot of other problems in the game. I'm trying to think of some of the more powerful ones. But the last big thing you're going to have to deal with is if they go through with their branded fusion combo, which at this point, hopefully you would be able to negate. But if you have no hand traps in your hand, the next big blowout card to deal with it would be your Forbidden Droplet. And that's really, and you're gonna have to deal with it on your turn, by the way. So hopefully, like I said, you have cards to stop the branded fusion combo. But yeah, that's pretty much what you're gonna have to Forbidden Droplet it, and then you're gonna have to attack over it, hoping that they don't have some kind of other defensive cards to prevent you. I mean, they can't prevent Forbidden Droplet really, but there are cards that can, but no, not many people are playing them. But yeah, you pretty much need to play Forbidden Droplet. Now, if they're playing Red Eyes Fusion, which I doubt it, or they're playing Verte, like it's the same thing. You're going to either Gamma the Verte, or you're going to Infinite Impermanent. And if it's just the Red Eyes Fusion that they draw and they try to go into, you're just gonna Ash it. So a lot of these cards do kind of go hand in hand. But yeah, I think these hand traps that I'm going over, they kind of fix a lot of the issues that you might face. So I don't know. I just think they're the best hand traps to play. If you had to pick though, I would say Ghostbell, really high impact, Ash Blossom as well, and maybe Gamma. But if you wanted to cut Gamma because you have to play 4 cards, then I would go with Imperm instead. I think you need to play either or, whereas this one's going to be a little bit stronger. There is also some weaknesses, like if you draw this after your first turn, it's just not very good. But if you're playing Branded Fusion, this can save your life for sure. But that's mainly it. I did also want to cover too, because Eldlik is so strong. One way to deal with that deck is Cosmic Cyclone. And the reason why I say Cosmic Cyclone and not like Harpy's Feather Duster or Lightning Storm is because, yeah, if you use those cards, it will slow them down for one turn, but they're going to have follow-up for sure, because they can banish those traps from their graveyard to search other ones. So Cosmic Cyclone is really the only one that's going to do lasting damage. Sorry, it's kind of like all over the place. I kind of I had an idea for what I wanted to do with Branded and Adventurer and DPE, but I figured Eldlik is kind of up there too right now as an engine, so I figured I would just add that in quickly at the end. But yeah, just as a I'll put these aside, just as a reminder, these are the cards or the interruptions that we discussed today that you need to probably have or have sided in your deck. Forbidden Droplet is still, of course, a staple. Called by the Grave is really good to deal with DPE. And Crossout Designator. I would have access to any of these cards. You might not necessarily play all these cards in your deck. But if, like, for example, I would have Cosmic sided. And then everything else here I would main deck. But the way I would do it is I would play probably 2 of, maybe 3 of Ghostbell, and then maybe like 1 or 2 Ash Blossom, and then of course like your full Gamma set, and then like 1 or 2 Imperms, so that you can play your Crossout Designator, and then have like all these main forms of interruption that will be played this format. But yeah, I guess that's going to be it. I would note too, I'm not doing a market watch, but Crossout Designator is about $40 now, when it was sitting down towards 30. So I would keep your eye on that, try to pick it up. Like I had mentioned yesterday in my video, this version of Ghostbell is now $12, or as of last night it was, so it might have gone up further. So you need to keep you need to get those sooner than later, because there's not really that many prints of it. And then as far as like Gamma, you can still get them for like $4 to $5. Like if you want to get the rare or the gold rare, it's really not too bad. Imperms are like $10. You probably know by now like what most of these are going for. Cosmic Cyclone has really affordable versions if you want to get the ultra rare for a couple of dollars, or the common for like $1.50. And Forbidden Droplet has come down in price. I think the reprint secret rare is around 85 to 90. The original print is 95 to 100, and the ultimate rare is still about 285 to 300. And called buys, like these are, since these were reprinted as a common in the Albad structure deck, these are like 50 cents. But yep, that's going to be it. I hope you guys enjoy your day, and I will catch you tomorrow.